A couple of days ago, you sat on a stage at a college in California and spoke on the Menendez brothers. So, are you or are you not educated on it? And are you an advocate or are you not? Because if you were advocating, you'd be well aware, especially someone that allegedly had been abused. I mean, we know that's a lie, but at least fake it, girl. At least get the education behind it so that you could speak on it. One that thinks that she really truly wants to be an advocate and she doesn't have the opportunity, this should tell you everything. Because if you're really trying to be an advocate, especially for abuse victims, even though you have not been abused in the way that she's trying to say she has been, you have to look at it from a standpoint of this is the biggest case that people are talking about right now. This would want to be one that she would be educated on, especially if she went to a university to speak on it. So I just think it's very ironic that she said she didn't know, but she still continued to stay in the camera and still interview.
Gypsy does not care about anyone else other than herself and what people are saying about her on social media.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're looking at Gypsy-Rose Blanchard. Yes, the Gypsy-Rose who is infamous for her role in her mother's tragic death. Recently, she found herself in the hot seat again, not for her past actions, but for some comments she made about the Menendez brothers. These comments have sparked a firestorm of criticism, leading to a pretty significant backlash. Thousands of followers are leaving her accounts, and her credibility as an advocate for prison reform is being questioned across social media. People are calling this the final straw, saying she's finally getting cancelled. Now, it's not every day we see someone who's been a topic of public debate since her release from prison manage to stir things up to this degree. But Gypsy's remarks about the Menendez brothers case, specifically her attempts to compare herself to them, have led to a major backlash.
How is it okay that Gypsy-Rose unalived her mother, spent, 5 years in prison, and is now living her life amongst us civilians when the Menendez brothers did the same thing and have been incarcerated for, almost 30 years and have not gotten out? Okay, I do understand now that Gypsy had tons of witnesses and medical records supporting her, but then the Menendez brothers also had several people testify confirming that they were in fact abused.
Let's break down what she said, why it rubbed so many people the wrong way, and whether this could be the end of public support for her advocacy efforts. Now, it's not every day we see someone who's been a topic of public debate since her release from prison manage to stir up things to this degree. But Gypsy's remarks about the Menendez brothers case, specifically her attempts to compare herself to them, have led to major backpush. Let's break down what she said, why it rubbed so many people the wrong way, and whether this could be the end of public support for her advocacy efforts. The first moment that set people off was during a university Q&A session where Gypsy spoke to students. During this session, someone in the audience brought up the Menendez brothers, especially in the light of the recent Monsters series that was released on Netflix. For those who haven't seen it, Monsters takes a dramatized version of the Menendez brothers' lives and the events leading up to their parents' murders. But here's the catch. The series included some seriously controversial elements, drug use, incest implications, and other sensational details that aren't backed up by any real story. Gypsy's response to the mention of monsters was quick and dismissive. She suggested that people shouldn't take movies and TV shows at face value, insisting that viewers shouldn't think everything they see is fact.
This is a question that might be in our minds. The Menendez brothers are getting attention due to a dramatization of their crime. How did it feel for that to happen to you with the act?
It was heartbreaking because unfortunately a lot of people seem to think that they know what happened and the events that took place by watching a TV show, and it was over dramatized. They got things incorrect. So to say that people should base their knowledge of a case on a dramatization is very inaccurate. That is not the way to go about it. I stress documentaries that do a deep dive into a case or someone's life. Real life research is the best beyond anything that you could find.
Now, it's true that dramatizations often add elements that aren't based in reality, but Gypsy's tone here was off-putting too many. Her remarks didn't come across as the words of someone who's genuinely invested in a prison reform or advocating for people like the Menendez brothers, who claim to have been wrongfully sentenced. Instead, she seemed almost indifferent, and people noticed.
I am very appalled and surprised and angry that gypsy-rose was at the University of San Francisco yesterday talking about prison reform, education, advocating for positive changes in the justice system. Prison Rebound is doing really good work at the University of San Francisco. They do really good work. And I don't understand why gypsy-rose was there. Like, she's being put there as an example. What they were talking about is the thin line between victim and victimizer, which is very questioning to me because she wasn't a victim. She was a victimizer. Why? So I don't understand why she was up there.
For someone who claims to be an advocate for the wrongfully imprisoned, Gypsy's remarks seemed strangely uninformed. The Menendez case has been in the spotlight for decades, and the story is far from unknown. In fact, her comments almost came across as minimizing, if not outright dismissing, the serious abuse the Menendez brothers have claimed to have endured. It left a lot of people wondering if Gypsy isn't interested in understanding the details of one of the highest profile cases of wrongful imprisonment. How sincere is she in her advocacy? Is she just saying what she thinks will keep her in the public's good grace without backing it up with any real action or insight? So if the university Q&A wasn't enough to cause a stir, Gypsy took things a step further in an airport interview with TMZ. When asked about the Menendez brothers again, Gypsy admitted she wasn't educated about the case. But that didn't stop her from giving her 2 cents. She went on to talk about the dangers of public support, saying that people often build others up only to tear them down later now.
Good.
You're glowing. It looks good. It looks really good on you.
Thank you.
One of the biggest stories in the world right now. The Menendez brothers. Have you been following that at all, or?
Not a whole lot. I'm not very educated in their case or anything.
Actually, they went to prison for murdering their parents, and nobody denies that they did it. But it's coming out, and it's pretty credible. A lot of people feel that they were abused by their parents. So now the DA is reviewing their case, and they're possibly going to get released. And I kind of wanted your opinion on that.
Okay. Well, I mean, I really can't speak on the specifics of that case. I'm not really educated in that case. But I will say that I would be an advocate for abuse victims in general, and I'm all about prison reform.
So if that happened, though, if their parents did abuse them, I mean, do you support their release? You think?
I don't think either of us are educated enough on the subject to give it.
Sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, I agree with Ken. I think that if their case is being reviewed, then hopefully something can be done. I think that abuse victims need to be advocated for more.
Yeah, Kim Kardashian actually supported that, and she defended that, and she's supporting their release. I think she's gotten some serious pushback. You don't think that's fair at all? And
I mean, Kim is
hard
a
to
wise
say.
woman. Kim is a wise woman.
She is.
She makes good decisions.
She is.
In her prison reform era, I think she's doing.
But Gypsy went a step further, implying that she and the Menendez brothers were somehow in the same situation. Let's break this down. The Menendez brothers endured years of alleged abuse by their parents. If you believe their accounts, they were trapped, suffering, and eventually saw no way out other than taking matters into their own hands. In Gypsy's case, yes, she did experience hardship at the hands of her mother, but when it came to her actions, Gypsy made a calculated decision. She didn't just snap. She planned her mother's death with her then boyfriend, bringing someone else into her decision. Her circumstances were vastly different from the Menendez brothers. Yet here she was, comparing her journey to theirs.
gypsy-rose planned her mother's unaliving for 2 years and manipulated someone with a lower IQ and a mental disability for 2 years to unalive her mother for her, so the fallback wouldn't be on her and she knew she could walk free. She even Googled if an accomplice to schmurder was something that she could be charged with and how long she would be in jail for that. Now she's out making millions, getting her own show, going on reality shows, bullshit. While the Menendez brothers, Lyle was essayed and R-worded by his father from 6 to 10 years old, whereas Eric was essayed and R-worded by his father from 6 years old to 18 years old. And when Lyle found out, when Eric was 18, that it was still happening to him, he snapped, and within a week, they unalived their parents. Not to mention, the mom, Eric and Lyle's mom, she knew about the abuse since the boys were 6 years old, and she did absolutely nothing about it. She never said anything about it, act like it wasn't happening, because she just wanted the family together. And they've been rotting in prison for 30 years, and
This self-comparison felt wrong to so many people. The Menendez brothers' actions stemmed from years of alleged documented trauma. They acted out of desperation, in the heat of the moment. Gypsy, on the other hand, carefully plotted her mother's murder and roped in an innocent bystander. Comparing herself to the Menendez brothers then came across as a tone of deaf, and viewers were quick to pick up on this. If her comments at the university had raised eyebrows, this interview with the TMZ pushed people to their breaking point. After these comments, the backlash against Gypsy reached a new level. Thousands of people started unfollowing her, and her once loyal audience seemed to lose faith. It's not hard to understand why. Many people had stood by Gypsy, believing in her story of survival and even admiring her for overcoming a dark chapter in her life. But now, her words and actions were beginning to suggest something else entirely. Gypsy's recent social media posts are flooded with comments questioning her authenticity. People are calling her out for focusing more on herself than on any real efforts to make a difference. If she were truly passionate about advocating for those wrongfully imprisoned, wouldn't she have taken the time to understand the Menendez brothers' case? Instead, it seems like her so-called advocacy has been a front, something to maintain her image rather than bring about change. As her follower count continues to drop, it's clear that people are fed up. They're not here for the shallow statements and empty words. They want real, impactful action. And Gypsy's recent comments make it clear to many that she's not the advocate she claims to be. Her supporters are now questioning her intentions, and the fallout has been significant. While Gypsy is busy fixing the backlash, the Menendez brothers' case is making headlines for an entirely different reason. Recently, the Los Angeles District Attorney, George Gascon, came forward with one recommendation that the brothers be considered for parole.
The Menendez brothers could soon be free. Today, the Los Angeles District Attorney is recommending resentencing for Eric and Lyle Menendez, meaning they could be eligible for parole immediately. The brothers have spent 30 years in prison, and this decision comes after evidence surfaced that helped support the brothers' claim they shot their parents to death because of years of sexual abuse by their father, Jose Menendez.
This is a huge step for them, considering they've been in prison for over 30 years. But what's even more striking is why they're being considered. The Menendez brothers have not only shown remorse but have also dedicated themselves to improving the lives of others within the prison system. They've pursued higher education and degrees and started support groups for trauma survivors. They work with elderly and disabled inmates, helping them find comfort in what can be a harsh and unforgiving environment. This isn't just empty advocacy. This is real, lasting impact. The contrast here couldn't be clearer. The Menendez brothers, even while facing life sentences, have found ways to create positive change. They have used their time in prison to reflect and make a difference, even if it's within the confines of a cell. Meanwhile, Gypsy's efforts as an advocate feel hollow in comparison. Her comments about the Menendez brothers have only highlighted the gap between genuine reform and shallow self-promotion. This brings us to where we are now. Gypsy-Rose Blanchard is being cancelled by her own followers. The backlash isn't just about one or two comments, it's about a pattern of behavior. People are tired of her using her story to gain sympathy without offering any real substance. For many, her recent statements about the Menendez brothers were the final straw, the moment when they realized she wasn't the advocate she had claimed to be. In the court of public opinion, Gypsy's fall from grace has been swift and dramatic. She's accused of doing exactly what her mother did.
People are saying that Gypsy Rose was in an unalive or be unalive situation. That is simply not the truth. Dee Dee was not slowly unaliving her over the years. Dee Dee wanted her alive because Gypsy was the meal ticket. She was the reason why Dee Dee and Gypsy were getting all of these free things, a home, a car, trips, all of that. And if Gypsy was no longer there, Dee Dee would get nothing.
Using a narrative to manipulate those around her. Only now it's the public she's manipulating, painting herself as a misunderstood advocate while her words and actions fail to align with any real change. This cancellation isn't just about her comments, it's about her credibility. And right now, it's hanging by a thread. Meanwhile, the Menendez brothers continue to receive support for their parole. They have shown remorse, taken responsibility, and used their time in prison to genuinely help others. They have done what many expect from someone who claims to want reform. And as Gypsy's platform continues to crumble, the Menendez brothers' hope for freedom only grows. What comes next? So where does Gypsy go from here? Can she recover from this? Or is this truly the end of her advocacy career? At this point, it's up to her to decide whether she'll step back and rethink her approach or continue this path of shallow comparisons and vague statements. The public isn't buying it anymore, and her credibility is at an all-time low. Meanwhile, the Menendez brothers' fight for parole continues, backed by the public sympathy and a track record of genuine reform. It's a story that resonates here is the fully expanded version of each segment with depth and narrative flow, adding critical insight into Gypsy's behavior and the contrasting elements with the Menendez brothers.